Good morning. Happy Tuesday. I'm still a little scratchy, but I'm Jenny Gallagher with Joyful Heart Healthcare and Keto Nurses. So good morning. Happy Tuesday. We have a new study to look at. It's exciting information about hormone replacement therapy. So hit that share button and share on your page or in a private message to someone you know that's struggling with menopausal symptoms. And there's hope in a whole different way. So I'm really excited about this discussion. So we'll give everybody a minute to log in. I'm still scratchy. I apologize. I'll be sipping on my coffee or my water as we chat. But good morning, Debbie Brown. Glad to see you here. So we'll let everybody get notifications and signed in. We have a lot to talk about this morning. This study was just released. In fact, all of the study hasn't been released. Only a report of the study. It's actually going to be presented at an upcoming conference of endocrinologists. And so I'm sure after that they'll publish it and it'll be running rampant all over social media because it is a remarkable result. So we're excited to share this information this morning. And I'm terribly... Sorry, I'm still scratchy, but it's almost gone. It's just a little throat tickle still left. So that's good. We're going to talk about hormone replacement therapy and insulin resistance. So grab your menopausal friends, tag anybody you want in the comments, anybody that's having issues with menopause, hot flashes, poor libido, mood swings, irritability, like all of the menopausal kinds of things, sleep problems, like everything can just about fall under menopausal symptoms. And you can actually begin having perimenopausal symptoms early, in your late 30s, early 40s even sometimes. A lot of times it is driven by insulin resistance. You cannot disconnect estrogen, testosterone, progesterone from insulin. You just can't. And this is one study that supports that philosophy. I've said it for like 4 years. But it's a rather remarkable intertwining of hormones. And so it's really important that we understand how interconnected these hormones are. It's one of the reasons I dislike how healthcare systems in general parcel out patient care. You have to go to the endocrinologist that specializes in thyroid dysfunction to get your thyroid managed. But your thyroid impacts all of your healthcare otherwise. Your insulin, your estrogen, your testosterone, your energy, your muscle function, your sleep, it impacts everything. So it's hard to parcel that out in a true patient. You have to go to the OBGYN to deal with some of your female reproductive issues, but that is all governed by thyroid. So why do we have to sort this out among specialties when all of this chemistry is so interconnected? That's what bothers me, because that's where patients get to feeling like nobody's listening. They go in and they tell their story. They get put on, whatever medicine and see you in 6 months or a year, and nobody ever really addressed the real problem. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but that's why we have such problems with quality patient care and outcomes. So today we're going to talk about a study. Only a report of the study has been released. It was published in a journal called Endocrinology Advisor on September 16th. So this is like brand new. Okay. This report came out because it is so influential to care. I think they publish this to prep people. This is just my philosophy here. But when you think about mainstream medical care, they've avoided hormone replacement therapy and said all sorts of bad things about it ever since the Women's Healthcare Initiative was released decades ago, a couple of decades ago. And they've said all along that estrogen therapy is unhealthy. It causes cancer. Progesterone isn't good for you. Testosterone is not needed by women. They made up what they wanted to see out of some of the findings in the WHI. So just a few months ago, there was another report released about how beneficial HRT is. I don't remember which journal it was in, but I posted it on my page. I shared it in several venues on social media. But it basically said hormone replacement therapy is helpful and beneficial for more reasons than just our reproductive system. Well, those of us in more functional care have known that for several years. We know that estrogen helps improve bone health. We know that estrogen improves cognitive function, prevents cognitive decline. We know that estrogen is vital for loads and loads of beneficial chemistry and balance and symptoms within the body. So hormone replacement therapy is now linked to improving your insulin resistance. The title of this released article is Hormone Therapy Tied to Reductions in Insulin Resistance. That is a remarkable title in a mainstream publication. I think we may be beginning to see a very slight shifting of the thought process, the paradigm for hormone replacement therapy. Women, when medicine first began prescribing drugs, 100 years ago-ish, women were not growing as old as we are now. Like most women didn't enter menopause and live for multiple decades afterwards. And so it was seen as a temporary problem that generally resolved itself, and mainstream male medical providers just didn't give it much credence. I hate to say that, but that's just bare bones facts. Now we have longer life expectations. Women are living into their 70s, 80s, and 90s quite easily in a healthy state, not handicapped and not disabled. We're living much longer, much healthier lives in general, and that poses hazards to lots of body systems. In middle age, 40-ish, 35 to 40-year-old women are beginning to have more significant problems with that middle age spread. Now we know that that is related to insulin mismanagement. The body is releasing so much insulin to manage the glucose levels that insulin is storing more and more weight. That used to be seen as normal. Middle-age spread is normal. You're supposed to do that when you hit your 30s or 40s. But now we see that that is not normal. That is very abnormal. And it is causing lots of health problems one little day at a time. So insulin resistance is the newest title to the biggest pandemic of health problems that we face as a nation, as in the whole world. Every single country has significant rises in insulin levels and insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome. These diagnosis codes are used by even mainstream providers that understand how dangerous insulin levels are. So this article was published in Endocrinology Advisor. Basically, the the headline sentence is hormone therapy is associated with significantly reduced insulin resistance in healthy postmenopausal women. This report was presented already. I thought it was to be presented. They presented this at the annual meeting of the Menopause Society, September 10th through 14th. So the printed version of this report is going to be hitting journals any day now. Like as soon as they can get it through the peer review process, this is going to make big headlines. It may hit a few headlines just from this report because of its topic. So what does that mean? It means that, well, let's back up a little bit. So when insulin levels go high, insulin is a big old bully when it comes to hormones. So insulin that's creeping upwards, even if it's part-time, you can have an insulin level even in our okay range at 5 or 6 and still be developing early insulin resistance because that's your fasting insulin level. What happens to your insulin level after food intake during the day? Multiple times, multiple meals, several snacks a day, whatever you're putting into the body is going to push that insulin level up all day long. So overnight, that's great that your insulin level is coming down to 5 or 6. Our ideal is about 4 or 5. Anything over 5 typically is beginning to push insulin levels higher and higher during the daytime. The higher those go, the more likely it is that that high insulin is going to impact nearby molecules, especially hormones. Okay? So when insulin resistance is early, it will still push on estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. It will push DHEA sulfate way out of balance. Most of the time it pushes DHEA sulfate high, but I've seen a paradoxical low levels in several of my insulin resistant patients. So not everyone's chemistry responds exactly the same as we expect or that we see in the majority of people. Remember the scientific bell curve. If you give a test to 100 students, most of them will score at the top of that bell curve. You're going to have some score on the low end and some score on the high end. So you have that bell curve that impacts every single human on the planet. I am part of that bell curve when it comes to various chemicals, various impacts, various symptoms that we see across the spectrum. So if insulin can push hormones out of balance, this article is based on the premise that we can push back. And I love that idea. If we put patients on appropriate estrogen, testosterone, or progesterone therapy, this article shows that it pushes back. It lowers insulin. How remarkable is that? You want to know something else? This isn't the first time we've known this. A previous study published in the Endocrine Society's journal called Endocrine Reviews. This article was published in June 2017. So 7 years ago in 2017, we have a headline that says menopausal hormone therapy and type 2 diabetes prevention. How do you prevent type 2 diabetes? You lower the insulin. So we knew 7 years ago in this article that metabolic function doesn't just impact glucose or insulin or thyroid. Hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are also impacted by metabolic function or dysfunction. So this article was basically saying that large randomized controlled trials, this was a review of literature, and so large randomized controlled trials suggested that menopausal hormone therapy Using estrogens can delay the onset of type 2 diabetes. Lo and behold. And we didn't hear tons about this 7 years ago. Why? Because estrogen therapy isn't covered by insurance in most cases, and HRT is sort of this enigma in healthcare. Mainstream providers remain skeptical and afraid of it simply because of that Women's Health Initiative years ago. And so even if you find a new prescriber, fairly new on the field, only been graduated from physician school or nurse practitioner, PA school, only in the last year or two, they're still going to be deathly afraid of prescribing hormones. Every single follower I have should print out these 2 studies and take them to every appointment where they talk about their health. Every person. So that your prescriber begins to do their own research and realizes how important our hormones are to us as women. Okay? Everybody needs to print out. I will post links to the studies in the comments after I finish this video, so you will have them at your hand, easily accessed. But estrogen replacement therapy is vital for our health. That's the bottom line. That's what most of us in the functional world have been saying for years. We have known for years that estrogen helps build bone. If your estrogen levels fall, you will almost always develop osteopenia, osteoporosis, which are weak, spongy bones. Light-complected, light-haired women. I used to be light blonde. I am very fair complected. I am one of the highest risk people because of various risk factors for osteoporosis and osteopenia. I am going to be on my estrogen. I just am. Many patients need more of their estrogen therapy than they think. It is not harmful. The reports that show the cancer relationship are all from synthetic hormones, the ones made in the lab. None of the bioidentical hormones that we use in a more functional practice like mine are related to the cancers. There's no bioidentical hormone article, study, research that links cancer to their hormone replacement. So all of the studies are due to synthetics. Well, think about that. The more synthetic things we use in our bodies, the more disease we have, the more unhealth we have. If we eat tons of crappy processed packaged food with tons of chemistry and chemicals and toxins in there, the sicker our bodies get. Our bodies don't want synthetic things internalized. Okay? We want healthy, normal, natural foods. Okay? We want meat. The body needs to prioritize protein because proteins are the building blocks of the cell. Protein is the highest priority for intake, no matter what. No matter what. You may need low protein, you may need moderate protein, you may need high protein based on your particular chemistry and function. Your body needs are different from everyone else's. I do have a basic formula that provides for the bare minimum nutrition intake on my joyfulhearthousecalls.com website, but that's the beginning. Okay, so that's the beginning. That's where we need to begin our journey to health and adjust as needed. Okay. Mary says, what about estrogen dominance? Estrogen dominance is a real problem for a lot of women. Most of the time, estrogen dominance occurs as a result of insulin resistance. So in estrogen dominance, we typically treat with progesterone, not estrogen. So we want to lower estrogen just a little bit to get it back into range where it's not causing the symptoms that make patients uncomfortable. Estrogen dominance is a real problem, although it's not an ICD-10 diagnosis. I think it probably will become one in the near future, but estrogen dominance is a symptom of insulin resistance. And these patients typically need progesterone and or other estrogen lowering agents. Debbie says, do these same principles apply to men with low testosterone? Pretty much. We can extrapolate a lot of the information we know about women to men, because we do know there are studies that have linked low T to insulin resistance. However, we don't put men on estrogen like we would put men on testosterone. Testosterone becomes estrogen in the normal process of hormone function. Okay, some of you have seen my chart where I talk about cholesterol becoming all the things. Cholesterol is at the top left of the graph, and then all the hormones come out of cholesterol. So testosterone becomes estrogen. So we don't need to treat men with estrogen. We need to treat men with testosterone. And there are several studies that do indicate low T improves insulin resistance as well. Because if you have low T, number one, you're tired, you don't feel good, you have no stamina, you have no energy. If we give you energy, guess what happens? You get up, you eat better, you're motivated, you have better energy, you have better function, you want to work out, you want to utilize muscles, you want to move. And so that significantly improves insulin resistance. Good question, Debbie. All right. Any questions about hormone replacement and insulin resistance? Any other questions y'all have today? Let me look back through here. I saw a couple people comment. Debbie said a while back, long story, but I finally got my PCP to adjust armor with a little tweak I asked for. He didn't suggest. Wow, what a difference it made. Didn't know how bad I felt until I felt better. That's awesome, Debbie. Sarah says, my favorite telehealth provider. Thank you. Kimberly, great info. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. I love finding new articles to share with y'all, because a lot of times these kinds of articles really get just deprioritized. So a lot of our articles have to come from the grassroots up. We have to show the provider, we have to show the prescriber, we have to instruct our own healthcare professionals in many cases. But these articles were published in mainstream peer-reviewed journals, and this should get out into the mainstream world, because women's reproductive symptoms are impairing normal life function. It's impairing normal ADLs. It's impacting relationships. It's impacting families and homes. So it's really important that this information gets out. Mary says, I had a hysterectomy years ago and was never told about HRT. My testosterone is high, estrogen is low, progesterone is low. Yep, that's not uncommon, Mary. That's not uncommon. Yep, that's pretty typical. However, when those things are like that, that's usually driven by insulin. So what is your insulin level? You need to find that out. Many prescribers will not order fasting insulin. They don't know the difference, to be honest, in a fasting insulin level and an A1C or a fasting glucose. They think all of those are pretty similar. They don't understand it's two separate chemicals that are being measured in the lab. Insulin, fasting insulin, tests the actual amount of insulin in your bloodstream at the time of the blood draw. And we want that fasting. That should never be drawn if you've had any food or drink whatsoever except water, plain water. Coffee will raise insulin. Don't let any prescriber or lab tech tell you it doesn't matter if you're fasting or not. If you, the consumer, the patient, want an accurate lab value, you want fasting every time. period. You can't get accurate lab values any other way, and don't let any other body tell you different. Every intake skews results. It'll skew your electrolytes, your protein levels, it will skew various other chemistry levels, and certainly your glucose and your insulin levels will be completely out of balance if there's any intake but water. Always have some water the morning of your draw, though. On your way to the lab, sip on a little bit. Okay. All right. So that is our discussion of hormone replacement therapy impacting for the good our insulin resistance. So y'all get out there and share this article, share this video, talk to people. Be sure to see about helping other people understand this. So Mary, insulin is different than glucose, and insulin has a huge normal range. It's not okay for it to be normal. It needs to be 4 or 5, period. If it is higher than 4 or 5, insulin is pushing those hormones. So get that fasting insulin tested. Not your glucose, not your A1C. It's a completely different lab value. All right? I'll see y'all next week. Happy Tuesday, happy week, and happy fall. Next time I see y'all, we'll be in the season of fall. Bye, y'all.